The summer before college arrived quietly, like a long breath Ethan did not realize he had been holding. Every morning he biked down the familiar road to the only gas station in town, a square building with faded signs and a bell that rang whenever someone pushed the door open. The air smelled of fuel and hot pavement, and the radio behind the counter played the same songs it always had. Nothing here ever rushed. Ethan worked the register, wiped counters, and watched cars roll in and out like thoughts he could not catch. Some drivers looked certain, hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on highways that led far beyond the cornfields. Others looked lost, studying maps on their phones, asking for directions they barely listened to. They stayed for 5 minutes, sometimes less, then disappeared again. During slow hours, Ethan leaned against the counter and imagined himself behind the wheel of one of those cars. He pictured the road stretching forward, clean and open, with no one asking who he was or who he planned to be. College brochures sat folded in his backpack, their bright photos promising new lives. Still, the idea of leaving felt heavier than he expected. His manager, Mr. Lawson, liked to say the station was a place of passing. Nobody belonged there for long. Ethan nodded when he heard that, but part of him wondered if that was true. He had grown up in this town, memorizing its limits without noticing. The streets knew him. The station knew him. As July crept forward, Ethan felt something shifting. Not excitement exactly, not fear either. Just a quiet sense that this summer was asking him a question, one he could not avoid much longer. By mid-July, the heat settled into the town like it planned to stay. The gas station fans pushed warm air around, and Ethan learned to measure time by the rhythm of arriving cars. Mornings belonged to commuters heading to nearby factories. Afternoons brought travelers who stopped only because their tanks were low or their children restless. One afternoon, a woman about his mother's age lingered after paying. She studied a road map spread across the counter, its edges worn and soft. When Ethan asked if she needed help, she smiled and said she was deciding where to go next. No schedule, no deadline, just driving until something felt right. That idea stayed with him long after she left. The freedom in her voice felt different from the freedom he imagined for himself. She did not sound like she was running away. She sounded like she was listening. Later that week, a group of college students pulled in, their car packed with suitcases and loud laughter. They talked about campuses, roommates, and parties waiting somewhere far from this town. Ethan rang them up and wished them luck, feeling both closer to and farther from the life they described. At home, his parents avoided talking about August. His mother asked if he needed new clothes. His father mentioned gas money and oil changes. No one said the word leaving. Ethan lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying faces from the station. People in motion, people unsure, people choosing, even when they did not know the outcome. The question from the summer grew louder. Was leaving about distance or direction? Ethan was no longer certain the two were the same. In late July, the town held its annual summer fair. The gas station stayed open late, and Ethan worked the evening shift while music and laughter drifted from the park across the road. Lights blinked in the distance, and the smell of fried food mixed with gasoline. It felt like two worlds overlapping, neither fully touching the other. A man in his early 20s stopped for gas just before sunset. He wore a work uniform from a city Ethan recognized from college brochures. While the pump clicked, the man asked Ethan about the town, then admitted he had grown up there too. He left years ago, chasing a job that paid better than anything nearby. Ethan asked if he was happy. The man paused, wiping his hands on his pants. He said happiness was complicated. He missed knowing people by name, missed quiet nights, but he did not regret leaving. He just wished he had known what he was giving up when he did. After the man drove away, Ethan stood outside longer than usual. The fair music rose and fell, and he watched families move toward the lights. Kids ran ahead, pulling their parents forward. Everyone seemed to know where they were going. That night, Ethan finally opened the college brochures again. The words felt thinner now, less solid than before. He realized he had been treating college like an escape route instead of a choice, something to outrun uncertainty. As fireworks cracked the sky, Ethan understood that leaving without knowing why was just another way of staying lost. Growing up, he thought, might require standing still long enough to decide what truly mattered. August arrived without ceremony. The mornings felt sharper, the lights slightly less forgiving. At the gas station, Ethan noticed how often people mentioned endings. Last day of vacation. Last long drive before work started again. Last stop before home. The word last followed him like a shadow. One quiet morning, Mr. Lawson asked Ethan what he planned to study in college. The question landed heavier than expected. Ethan admitted he was not sure. He had chosen a major that sounded practical, something easy to explain. Mr. Lawson nodded and said most people did that. Then he added that the hardest part was not choosing a path, but admitting when it was not yours. That afternoon, Ethan took his break behind the station, sitting on the curb with his feet on the warm concrete. Cars passed without stopping. For the first time, he did not imagine himself in any of them. Instead, he thought about what he enjoyed at the station, listening to stories, noticing small changes in people's voices, the way moments connected if you paid attention. When his shift ended, Ethan biked home slowly, taking streets he usually avoided. He passed his old school, the library, the field where he learned to drive. None of it felt like a trap anymore. It felt like a beginning that had shaped him. That night, Ethan filled out a form he had been avoiding. Not a withdrawal, not a commitment to stay forever, just a request to change his program of study to something that matched his curiosity. He did not know where it would lead. For once, that uncertainty felt honest. On Ethan's last day at the gas station, the bell above the door rang with its usual sound. Nothing looked different. The same faded posters. The same smell of fuel and dust. Yet everything felt newly defined, as if the place had sharpened its edges in his memory. People came and went, as they always had. A family heading back from vacation. A truck driver stopping for coffee. A couple arguing quietly over directions. Ethan watched them with a calm attention, no longer measuring his life against theirs. Their movement was theirs. His was his own. Mr. Lawson shook his hand at the end of the shift and thanked him for a good summer. He said Ethan would figure things out, then return to restocking shelves. The simplicity of the goodbye stayed with him. No speeches, no advice, just trust. That evening, Ethan packed his backpack for college. Not everything fit. He left behind old notebooks, clothes he never wore, things he once thought defined him. What remained felt lighter, chosen. Before bed, he stepped outside. The town was quiet, held together by streetlights and familiar shadows. He realized he was not leaving to escape it, nor to prove anything. He was leaving because he wanted to learn, to test himself, to listen more closely to the person he was becoming. The summer had not taught him how far to go. It taught him how to choose. And that, he understood, was what growing up truly meant.